Welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews in partnership with Roadrunner Sports, and today we're taking a look at ASICS top tier elite super race day shoe. It's the Metaspeed Sky Paris. Let's run with it. Before we get started, I do want to say these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, no one had a chance to preview this video, and the final synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. Now this is one of ASIC's top tier elite racing shoes intended for the half or full marathon. And I say one of because there's actually a twin to the Metaspeed Sky Paris, and that's the Metaspeed Edge Paris. And you're probably wondering, Ryan, what is the difference? These two shoes look pretty much identical. Well, the short condensed version is the Sky, the shoe here in my hand, is intended for those that increase their stride length when picking up the pace, while the Edge is focused for those that increase their cadence when picking up the pace. And there's different technologies with the midsole and the configuration of the plate that kind of cater to those two different strategies or running types. So I hope that makes sense. For me, I picked the Sky because I have longer legs and I do typically tend to increase my stride length when pushing the pace. So I thought this would be a good one to test out. And honestly, I am quite impressed. It's probably my number 2 super race day shoe right now, behind the Adidas Pro 4. And I'll go into some of the differences later on in the video, but I do think ASICS has a solid winner on their hands here, and I am quite impressed. The Metaspeed Sky Paris does have a premium price tag of $250. And as far as the stack height goes, we have 39.5 in the heel and 34.5 in the forefoot for a relatively low 5mm drop. However, what I really think makes this shoe special is the weight. It only weighs 6.5 ounces, or I believe 185 grams, making this one of the lightest super race day shoes around, and you definitely notice it despite it having pretty much that full 40mm of stack height. And I really don't think they compromised too much on the upper materials at all here. So yeah, if you're looking for a light racing shoe, I think this definitely fits the bill. The shoe did fit true to size for me, and despite it being an elite racing shoe, I didn't feel like I was overly restricted by this upper, didn't feel overly narrow or anything like that. It definitely leans more towards kind of that race day fit, but I thought it had a generous amount of room. Now, as far as the upper material, it's Motion Wrap 2.0. It's an extremely open mesh. I say the breathability is a 10 out of 10. You can see directly into the shoe very easily. I thought it supported my foot very well. They went all out on the minimal side with this upper, which I do appreciate because it keeps the shoe light at 6.5 ounces. Now, something I thought was kind of cool is if we move it towards the back of the heel counter, it's actually fairly rigid and stiff. They have a well-structured spine here with an aggressive slant to it. So the heel lift was non-existent. It kept it locked in. Now, I have seen some people on Instagram get blisters because it is such an aggressive heel counter. That was not the case for me. My socks usually do a great job of preventing blisters, but it is a very noticeable and aggressive heel counter with a decent amount of structure, despite the upper itself being very minimal. So I think that's a nice touch, and I actually kind of like that setup, so it keeps you locked in without sacrificing weight or anything like that. And then the tongue is, I'd say, probably the most minimal portion of this upper. It's almost like a very thin felt-like fabric. It's not gusseted. Yes, it does take a second to get everything situated, to get it to lay flat and all of that, but for the most part, it gets the job done, and it does have some holes for even more ventilation. And then the laces, it has this rib-like texture to help with them not coming untied or anything like that, which I do appreciate. So when it comes to this upper in general, I actually really liked it. It fit my foot well, wasn't overly tight, extremely breathable, and the aggressive heel counter kept my heel in place. So I really like what they did here with this racing upper, and I'd say it's probably one of my more favorite race day shoe uppers, if you will. If we move on to the midsole, it's going to be ASIC's most energetic foam. It's Flight Foam Turbo Plus. I believe that's a PEBA-based material. We also have a full-length carbon fiber plate, which here on the Sky stays closer to the top of the midsole, where on the Edge, the Sky's counterpart, the carbon fiber plate sweeps closer to the ground, has a bigger swoop, and helps cadence runners have faster turnover, as the Edge is intended for those that pick up their cadence when pushing the pace, while the Sky, the shoe in my hand, is for those that increase their stride length when pushing the pace. And if I understand it correctly, essentially there's supposed to be a little bit more bounce in the forefoot to help those stride runners. And then if we flip it around to the outsole, most of the rubber is concentrated in the forefoot with a very thin layer of ASICS grip rubber. You do have exposed foam through the midfoot and heel section, and a very small pad of rubber on the medial side of the heel. Really didn't have any major complaints with the outsole grip. It feels pretty much in line with most other very smooth race day outsole patterns. So how did this shoe perform? Well, honestly, say it's probably one of the better super race day shoes out right now. And when you get into that category, it just comes down to your personal preference, because each shoe has its own unique quirks and features, for lack of a better term, that really kind of make the shoe better for some runners and worse for others. So I'll do my best to explain. The best thing about the Metaspeed Sky Paris is the fact that it only weighs 6.5 ounces, which is crazy light. And to put that into perspective, I believe that's half an ounce less compared to the Adidas Pro 4, which I think is a big difference. The other thing is the midsole foam. It's soft and bouncy, but in my opinion, after trying a bunch of running shoes, this feels like a firmer, more resilient level of foam, so it's not going to be overly soft, not as much compliance or compression to this midsole compared to something like the Adidas Pro 4, which has a softer, squishier midsole. And then I think the last thing, or thing I noticed the most, is the rocker geometry. You definitely feel it, but it's not as aggressive compared to I would assume the Edge with its more aggressively swooped carbon fiber plate, and something like the Adidas Pro 4, which I thought had a more noticeable rocker sensation. Now, I was back and forth between these two shoes to use them for my last half marathon. I raced in both, and for me, I prefer the Adidas Pro 4 mainly because I appreciate the softer and I'm guessing bouncier midsole. It's just kind of based off my gut feel. I kind of like that compression and the much more aggressive rocker geometry. That's kind of why I leaned towards this. Now, what I really liked about this shoe is the fact that it felt lighter and you have a more supportive, bouncy feeling underfoot, if that makes sense, just because the foam here, while it's soft and bouncy, has a bit more resiliency and support to it compared to the very soft Light Strike Pro. Now, I wouldn't consider this necessarily very stable. You do have a very narrow heel section, but again, the foam here does give you a bit more support compared to Light Strike Pro. The other thing I really liked here about the Sky is the fact that the upper is so open and breathable, very minimal without sacrificing lockdown. The Pro 4 has a more closed off upper experience, didn't have as much breathability, and the Sky is also significantly lighter, which is just kind of a wonderful thing. You throw this shoe on, it feels like you're wearing really hardly anything at all. So it really comes down to your personal preference. If you like something with a bit more resilient and bounce feeling to it, that's where I think the Sky comes in. If you like a softer, squishier bounce feeling, I think that's where the Pro 4 comes in with its more aggressive rocker geometry, but that's just my opinion. These are two, I think, wonderful race day shoes. Just kind of depends on what exactly you're looking for. Well, that concludes the review. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Metaspeed Sky Paris, or if you've tried the Edge, I would love to hear what you think of that shoe as well. I'm Ryan from Ryan's Running Reviews, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.